If you'd like to learn how to make this delicious ham and potato casserole, something that you can make ahead and have ready in no time for dinner, just stay tuned to the next episode of Hilltop Stovetop. Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we're teaching you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today we're following through on some of the requests from my subscribers, and in this case they've asked me to do some more recipes about casseroles. Now, casseroles are amazing things, relatively simple. Usually the basic ingredients should be something that you have in your pantry ready to go, that you just throw a few things and put it into one pot. Another advantage to them is you can make them ahead of time, pop them into the fridge, and then just pop them into the oven when you get home from work. It takes about an hour to cook most of them, and but if you've got it all put together before you leave for work, come home, by the time you get dressed, relax for a little bit, dinner's on the table. Another great thing about them is they're really handy if you're looking for something to take to a friend that maybe needs a little help. You know, my friend Sharon makes this fabulous broccoli chicken casserole. That's her go-to thing if anybody needs a little pick-me-up, you know, maybe they're not feeling well, or you know, any number of reasons that you feel like you want to take something over to a friend. Great thing to have. Now, one of these days I'll wheedle that recipe out of her and we can give it a try. But today we're going to be making one that's called a crunchy top ham and potato casserole. And I thought that this would be a good one to start with because one of the most popular videos on my channel is the one about homemade old-fashioned boiled ham. And of course, when you have a big ham like that, you have leftovers. So we're going to start with some leftovers. Now, I'm going to give you what the basic ingredients are in this recipe, but I'm also adding a few things. The recipe doesn't call for vegetables, and I'm adding a few extra vegetables to this. The other thing that this recipe does is it talks about you have a choice of either doing it in a large pan or two small pans. And if you do it in two small pans, you make them up, you put one of them in the freezer, like you don't even worry about cooking it, you put it all together, put it back in the freezer, and then you've got it for another day. In this case, because I'm adding the extra vegetables, I'm going to have enough to make both the large one and the small one for the freezer, one for the oven. So we're going to start off. The recipe actually calls for about 2 cups of cubed ham. I've got a little bit more than that because I'm making more than the basic recipe. It calls for 1 kilogram of frozen hash browns. Just dump it all in the package. And the recipe calls for 1 can of cream of chicken soup, undiluted. So this is the concentrated stuff. You don't worry about diluting it. And this is the really good flavor boost. Saves you having to put in a lot of extra spices. I mean, you can season to taste as you wish. But a concentrated soup like this is fairly salty and has a lot of extra flavor in it. You could also use cream of mushroom, or there's a nice cheddar soup if you can find it, hard to come by. Now, because I'm doing an extra little bit, normally I would 1.5, but the extra that I'm doing is I'm adding some extra cream, and I'm going to add some extra concentrated chicken bouillon. Just going to give that an extra gulp. That's extra in addition to the recipe. I'll put the basic recipe in the description, and then you can add to it whatever you want. Next thing we add is 2 cups of sour cream. 2 cups of sour cream is 1 tub like this, like a 1-pound tub. And it calls for 1/3 cup of chopped green onions. The green onions is about the only colorful thing in the original recipe. Now I've added some extra just plain cooking onions chopped in addition to the green onions, again because I'm making a recipe and a half, and that's going to add some extra flavor. And the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of melted butter. And those of you that are eagle-eyed will notice that that was more than 1/2 cup. Again, recipe and a half is what I'm making. And it calls for 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar. And I love these ones that are pre-done, and I buy them on sale and throw them in the freezer, and then I've got them whenever I need them. How much pepper? It calls for 1/2 teaspoon. There we go. So that's all that is in the original recipe. Now to soup this up a little bit, I'm adding some chopped mushrooms. And some chopped celery. Some frozen peas. And I've got a little bit of frozen broccoli here. The other thing about casseroles, it's a great way to use up leftovers. So if you had some leftover vegetables, you could be using those instead of the frozen ones. So all I'm going to do now is just mix all of this together. Hold your breath. Well, see if how much goes over the edge. Okay, so there we've got it all mixed together. And just while you're thinking about it, if you don't have ham, this would be perfectly fine with chicken or even pre-browned hamburger, any kind of meat that you want. So now we've got our pans, and now I've got 2 pans. I've got the 8.5 by 11, which would be the basic. The basic recipe would go into a pan this size, or 2 pans of this size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute this between 2 of them, and then we'll get ready to do some topping. And you'll notice that I have the pans really well greased. There. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to do some topping. Now the original recipe calls for topping made with cornflakes. And cornflakes makes great topping for casseroles. I don't happen to have any, so we're going to use the old soda cracker. I've got a full sleeve of saltine crackers, and very gently I'm just pushing down, straight down, and crushing them as we go. Give it a little shake, crush down again. And my sister is holding her breath while I do this. It drives her crazy, but it works. If you don't have one that's a full sleeve, you can certainly put them in a plastic bag or between 2 sheets of wax paper and roll it out with a rolling pin. But I find that this is a fairly neat way to do it. Then we're going to take a 1/4 cup of butter melted. And now this is, for those of you that have watched my video on how to make macaroni and cheese, exactly the same topping that we did for the macaroni and cheese. Now that 1 sleeve and the 1/4 cup of butter, I think it's going to be just about the right amount for this big casserole. And the small one I'm going to put into the freezer, so I can put the topping on it on whatever day I'm ready to start cooking it. So now I'm going to pop this in the oven, 350 degrees for 1 hour, and we'll pop it out and dinner will be ready. So we'll see you then. Okay, so we're back. It's about an hour. I've used aluminum foil to cover up the extra casserole. And I think what I'm going to, and I actually, I did find some panko crumbs and added butter to that to put so there is a topping on it. But anyway, it's covered up and in the freezer. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that over to my brother-in-law, because yesterday was his birthday. And I know with COVID, he didn't get to have a party. So at least I'll take him some supper for tonight. But anyway, our timer's just gone off. It's been an hour for our casserole. So let's see what it looks like. Oh, sizzling goodness. And again, all from things that were already in our freezer or a little bit of leftovers. We've got a nice crispy crust. We've got ooey, sizzling gravy sort of on this. So let's dig in and see how it looks. Just enough cheese in there that it gets a little bit extra goodness. And there we have it. Ham and potato casserole. Pretty easy. All you have to do is throw together the ingredients, pop it in the oven. You can even make it ahead of time. So I hope you liked today's episode of Hilltop Stovetop, and that you'll remember to like and subscribe and share with your friends. And if, like my subscriber that requested more casserole dishes, if there is something that you would like to learn how to make, just put it in the comments. If it's something that I know, I'll see what I can do for you. Bye-bye for now.